It's the Weather Xtreme video. This is the morning edition for Friday, October 7th. I'm James Spann. Alabama's drought will worsen. We see no rain for at least the next 7 days and probably beyond that. And Matthew battering the east coast of Florida. What about that loop situation? Much to talk about. So let's dive in. Very active pattern across the country this morning, although not here where we are. Cold trough in the western states. Active thunderstorms in advance of the push of cold air from North Texas up to the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes. And, of course, Matthew sitting on the east coast of Florida. 50s and 60s early this morning. Haleyville, 55. Much warmer in the city. Birmingham, 68. We'll be back in the 80s today. We will turn cooler, though, by late this weekend and early next week. A slow process. And look at the cold air in the western states. Wow. Coldest easily so far this season. And if Matthew would have run up the Atlantic coast, up toward the New England coast, it would pull that down in here. But it's not going to do that. It's going to loop, so we're just going to catch a glancing blow from that really chilly air. The growing season has ended for much of the northern states. Those are frost and freeze warnings, the blue shades there from the Texas Panhandle up to the Canadian border. Of course, with Matthew, you got flash flood watches and hurricane warnings there. A slight risk of severe weather, the standard risk on the coast of South Carolina today because of the tornado potential. Really, the greatest potential should be just offshore of tornadoes based on the position of this. And then tomorrow, no severe weather across the country and not much rain. Speaking of not much rain, that's a familiar sight. And understand, don't get this Alabama drought story lost in the Matthew talk here. This is 18 days in a row without rain for Birmingham. No rain for 10 more days, more than likely. This is, again, through 7 days, valid through Friday morning of next week. Rain shield with Matthew stays to the east. Pretty big numbers coming up inland now into the coastal plain of South Carolina up toward Cape Fear and Wilmington. This is suggesting Savannah, Charleston, Wilmington could receive over 1 foot of rain from this thing. And again, a very tight gradient inland, as you can see. A couple of systems on the board. We have Hurricane Nicole, Hurricane Matthew. First off, Nicole is just going to do the hokey pokey out in the middle of nowhere, meandering around, looping, if you will, with little steering currents, but there's evidence it will be turning north by the middle of next week as a tropical storm, possibly nearing Bermuda, but that remains to be seen. Here's a look at Matthew this morning, a Category 3 hurricane. Top winds 120 miles an hour. This thing is, the eye wall is basically near Cape Canaveral. On the Cape within the last hour, as I do this update early this morning, they had a peak wind gust of 102 miles per hour. In fact, let me show you some of the actual observations. And again, with the thing holding just offshore like that, it's great news for cities like Orlando. And we talked about, it's wet and windy today. Orlando's got light rain, a north wind at 23. Gusting to 39, but that's not going to cause any major damage. Once this thing passes, the weather improves later today there, and the weekend will be beautiful. Disney World will be back up and running, and there's no problems. That's why we advise people that were there just to stay there and wait this day out and enjoy the weekend. On the coast, you can see Daytona Beach with a gust of 51, Melbourne with a gust of 64 early this morning. Those were taken at about 5 o'clock. Look at the modeling on this, the tropical models. Got a few want to take it out to sea. Most of them do the loop. The GFS, interesting here, the mean of the ensemble members, that's the black line. And that's typically the one you want to look for. It's a 21-member ensemble. It does the loop, it brings it down toward the Bahamas, and then kicks it out to sea. The operational run, the OZ run, brings it down toward the coast of Cuba. But you can see now most of the members actually keep this out of the Gulf of Mexico. So the idea of this getting into the Gulf seems to be off the table for now. But as we always say, there's not much skill in forecasting a tropical cyclone beyond 5 days. Here's the official track of the Hurricane Center, from the Hurricane Center. They leave it just offshore. And, it's interesting that the western edge of the eye wall is brushing Cape Canaveral this morning, but technically we don't have landfall. And there's a chance this thing won't make landfall, which means the hurricane drought will continue. We've gone 4,000 days without a major hurricane making landfall in the United States, and by golly, that streak just might continue. But boy, it was close. All right, here we go, model fans. The GFS, the 06C run, 1 o'clock today. Cold trough lifting to the north over the northern plains. Down below that, we've got Matthew just east of Daytona Beach. And we're warm and dry. Highs mid to upper 80s today. Tomorrow, Matthew is just northeast of Charleston. And again, for us, it'll be a warm, dry day to kick off the weekend, low to mid 80s. Sunday, Matthew begins to move east. We cool down a bit. The Sunday's high should be closer to 80. And understand, with this loop scenario, it's not going to help pull down the really chilly air. Monday, Matthew is looping around. We're dry. Monday's high will be probably upper 70s. Tuesday, lows around 50, highs in the 70s. And again, we could easily see some 40s Monday and Tuesday morning. And Matthew is headed back toward the Bahamas as a much, much weaker tropical storm. And then Wednesday, Matthew is over the Bahamas. Again, a weak type tropical storm. Wednesday here, dry and pleasant. Thursday, Matthew dropping down toward Cuba. We're dry. Highs mostly in the 70s, lows mostly in the 50s. And this is a week from today, a little shortwave over the southern plains. And again, for us, it's the same old story. We're dry. The ghost of Matthew, or whatever it happens to be at that point, is over Cuba. Here's the end of the forecast period. This is Sunday the 16th. Northwest flow aloft, a dry air mass. No evidence of any tropical mischief, although maybe that little circle south of Cuba is the ghost of Matthew. Boy, you talk about a desert here. Look at Alabama. We're just the one little dry spot down there. This is the rain for the next 10 days, valid through October 16th. Temperatures, highs mostly in the 70s and 80s, lows mostly in the 50s over the course of the next 15 days as the quiet October weather continues. That's it for the Weather Xtreme video this morning. We'll have notes in the blog. Next video here by 4 o'clock this afternoon. You can't catch us this evening on the live stream of the television side, ABC 3340 News at 4, 5, 6, and 10 o'clock. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and God bless.